in high school, and I was supplementing my studies at the Brooklyn Museum Art School. And I was paying for my own classes. I had a job at a newspaper office in the art department. And every weekend I picked a bus in, and I was studying studio arts. So life drawing, still life drawing, you work in pencil, charcoal, oil paint, whatever they gave you, worked in. 2.5 years into it, my mother found my drawing of my folder of naked people leaning against the wall in the hallway. And she said, you can't go there anymore because they make you draw naked people there. So I had to leave that course of study. I know, it's really weird. Well, listen, a working class family, Italian, Brooklyn working class family, a girl doesn't do that. So finally I left home, which was just another story in itself. And I went to college where I was an art major, and I studied studio arts, art history, all the stuff that you're supposed to study, when you're in art school and college. And I majored in art and I minored in physics. Now, the minor in physics came in really handy because years later, I got commissions from the New York City Cultural Council and the Massachusetts State Council on the Arts to create kinetic works in public spaces. So that science background really helped me out. I was able to do things that I wouldn't have done normally. I had several jobs in the arts over the history of my life. I taught school, 4th through 6th graders in a private school. I taught art history, techniques, design. I worked in an ad agency, I worked in a newspaper office. I had a motorcycle customizing shop on the Lower East Side when it was not hip to live on the Lower East Side. Junkies in the doorway and stuff like that. I was an art director at Scholastic Publications. I worked on little kid magazines. Yeah, that was fun. I like that. And I also started my own business, which I located how I ended up here. It was called Noble Graphics. And we specialized in creating educational publications. So our clients were both coasts. I had Simon & Schuster was a client, National Geographic, Scholastic Publications, the National Educational Association in Washington. There were another one. Through all of this process, all of these different jobs that I had, I always had my friends who came and visited me. I saw them everywhere. When my fine art career took off in 1974, and I was doing kinetic installations, all my work was abstract work. Everything I exhibited was abstract work. But I always drew my friends, and I kept them in the closet. And there was a good reason for that. When I was at the Brooklyn Museum Art School, and I was taking life drawing, I painted a figure, and I painted the nude green. And my instructor chastised me for it. And I gotta remember, I was like 16, 17 years old. I was pretty impressionable. And what he said was, that's not what's there. That's not what we see. Well, for Christ's sake, it's what I saw. I swear to you, the figure before that one was orange and purple, and this figure that I saw in that space, that woman's skin was green. And I think I did a beautiful rendition of all the tones, and it was green. Years after that, I was in my 20s, and my father said to me, I don't know, how come you don't draw houses and flowers like that? And I thought to myself, I want to be normal. I don't want to be different from other people. I want to fit in. I'm an Italian Catholic kid from Brooklyn. You want to fit in. You want to settle down and have a family and have kids and be like other girls. I wasn't like other girls. So now I say, why am I doing it now, right? I'm going to be 63 years old this month. And my friends come more persistently to me than they ever did in my life. A couple of years ago, I was having trouble at work because they disrupt the work process. I had a straight job, and it's really hard to concentrate when things like this are running around under your desk, when you turn around to talk to your boss, and you see something like this. So I knew I no longer fit into what was going on, and there was something else that I was supposed to be doing. The other thing about him was I never know why these characters are in my life. I come from a family of empaths. My sister, both sisters actually, my sisters, my son, my mother, they're the kind of people who actually speak to the dead. I didn't want that. I remember being in my 20s and deciding I don't want to hear voices anymore. It's too scary. Somebody tells you who's on the other end of the phone before you pick up the telephone. That was freaky for me, and I didn't want that. So, in the true woo-woo tradition, I made a pact with Spirit, and I said, please, if you have anything to tell me, you've got to find another way, because I can't handle the voices. It was really disturbing. I think that these characters come to me because there are stories that I'm supposed to tell other people. And Spirit knows I'm scared, and I don't want to hear the voices anymore. So he sends me these little characters because I'm visually oriented, you know? I can draw. People say, oh, you're a watercolor artist, what do you draw? I say, I draw what I see. It's just that I don't see the same stuff that they see. There's a difference in that. Let's see. Okay, so now I'll tell you about the work, the technique itself. Why I chose this technique. You see all this graininess that's in here. Graininess here, the kind of spotchiness that's in this one, the graininess in this one. This is how I see the beings that come to me. I'll look at you. You're a full person. You're clear, cut, almost a photograph of yourself. When they come to me, it's as if somebody drops a scrim between you and me, and they're moving on the scrim between us. So they're not clear. They're kind of like they have a grid work on them, or they're half here and not half here. And if I see them walking in a room and there's an open window behind them, I can see the light from the window behind them. So they're, in painting in this technique, this is the one that most closely resembles what I experience when I see them. The other thing you need to know is that when I see these characters, this being is this tall. I've got a big freaking wingspan. So that's disruptive. Yes. I'm trying to fill the dishwasher. And this thing is in the kitchen. And I know that I'm supposed to be drawing it, and I don't know why, but I do have other things I'm supposed to be doing besides that. So, and they don't stand still. So it's not like when you go in the studio and you hire a model and you say, sit there for 20 minutes so I can draw you. They're moving, and they don't let me look directly at them. It's very rare that I have a character that will stay still long enough for me to look directly at them. It's usually the corner, the peripheral vision sort of thing. So I always keep different size pads and pencils around that I could really catch what I can catch. Now I don't know, actually I don't see iconography. No, let me go into the technique. Now. So the actual technique is, these pieces are on cotton rag watercolor paper. And that means that it's a really sturdy paper, and it's archival, and it's going to last 100 years, and whatever you put on it is going to be there. It's also very sturdy, so with my process of painting on it, waiting for that to dry, painting over the surface of the watercolor paper with chocolate brown temper paint, so you don't even see that there's a painting there, it's totally covered, and then washing it off in the sink. The paper has to be able to withstand the changes, the pressure of the water pounding on it, and all the things that go through it in order for it to keep doing what it's doing. They're framed according to what they are produced on. So in the case of the cotton rag watercolor paper, you want to protect the dyes that they're made out of. So the framing on these pieces, this is all museum glass, so they're UV protected. It's a cost more to frame a piece like that compared to an acrylic painting, because you need the glass to protect the painting so that it will last forever. Now, when I work on a wood surface, I coat the surface first with something called a cold pressed ground. And it's very similar to gesso, except that gesso has plastic in it, and the cold pressed ground is a porous surface, so it can easily absorb the dye of the watercolor. And one of the things that I take into account when I actually make a painting is the ratio of pigment to media, because the higher the pigment, the greater chance that the subsurface, in this case the cold pressed ground, will actually be dyed. And that's really important when I go to put the temper paint on top of it, because if it's not really dyeing the surface, you put the temper paint on top and the paint disappears. And then of course when you hit it with the hose, you can lose a whole painting at one time. I only lost one. I lost one painting 3 times. I've learned a lot since then. So now when I work on the wood surface, I want to protect the dye, I want to protect the watercolor to make sure that it's not going to fade, because I'm assuming that as art connoisseurs, you all know that watercolor fades in the sunlight. Liquitex and Golden put out a surfacing material. It's UV protectant. It comes in a matte finish or satin finish, gloss finish, and it does protect the watercolor to a point. I wouldn't recommend taking a piece like this out in the backyard and putting it in the sun. That would be very foolish. But if you sneeze on it, it's not going to go anywhere. And I really love to touch them. See, I can touch this piece, and if nothing's going to happen to it. So I really like using that sort of material on it. And when I talk about the iconography, and I've had several people say this to me, this is a little weird. You know, like, a man came up to me one time in a street show, and he said, "So this is allegorical art, huh?
Yeah.
So, like, where's Persephone?" And I was like, dude, I'm not saying it's Greek or I'm just saying that there's stories that are associated with the work. And like I said before, I don't always know what the stories are when I start. I just capture the characters, and I assume they have a story with them. So the character comes, I draw the character, I still don't know what it means. I put all the pieces together, I still don't know what it means. But as I'm putting the paint in a given section of the painting, and I think this is really good, as I'm putting it in a given section of the painting, a little voice over my right shoulder says to me, "Ah, that's blue paint on the uplifted finger. That's divine inspiration. Oh, look at the bird up in the corner. That's the higher consciousness." But you gotta remember, I'm a recovering Catholic. So there's a lot of Catholic imagery in the things that I do. So you'll see the Holy Spirit in several of my pieces. Not all of them here. Obviously, this is very much like one of the many images of the Virgin Mary. She has appeared to so many people in so many different ways, and I'm sure that's my Catholic upbringing that made her appear like this here. But this character doesn't really have a gender. And I think that's something important that you need to know about my work. My work is not really gender specific. Obviously, this is gender specific. It's not a penis and a vagina in it. But the story of this piece can be either way, right? So I say the story of this piece is how some people seek their higher selves between the legs of others. I'm a female. I identify as female. I can only paint it from what is true to me, from what my experience as a female is. But you'll see that many of the works, I don't refer to this character as a female character, although when I look at it, I'm like, that looks just like the Virgin Mary. But the voice said it's a sacred being. It is a non-gender specific sacred being. And I have to respect what I'm told. Now, as you look through the paintings, you may find that there are certain images that hold a different meaning for you in your life. And I think that depending on where we are in our personal development, the stories mean different things. So at one point in my life, perhaps this meant something else to me than what it means now. Now it's telling me to just calm the hell down. That's what it's saying now. I had a woman come in here the other day. She was German. And she said, "Oh my God, that looks like Breakfast in America." And I was like, she said, "It's got a screaming child in it. Isn't that all you want to do is sit down and have a cup of coffee and the kids jumping all over." And that's what and I mean, that had value to her. That's what it reminded her of. I've had people look at my work and cry because the story that they get from it means so much in their personal development, the point that they're at in their personal development. And when people tell me their stories and they interact as deeply as they do with the painting, then I know that I'm on track. Then I know the value of my work and the purpose of my work. And I'm glad that I didn't wait any longer. I wanted to do it. So feel free, when you look at the work, to come up with your own stories based on your own personal histories. And if you're stymied about anything, stories are always associated with work. All my prints, the stories on the back. If you visit my website, there's stories there. But know that that's not the end-all, absolute be-all of the painting. Thanks for listening.